Good morning and welcome to another edition of our post-cabinet press briefing, where we give you updates on what happens in cabinet and in some cases what happens across the wider government. This morning we have two special guests. We have Dr. Christopher Tufton, Minister of Health and Wellness, and we also have the new, the new kid on the block, Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon, who is Minister in charge of technological, digital skills and so on. We will be going very quickly as we have two important presentations, and we're going to start with Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon this morning. Dr. Morris-Dixon, may you... Oh, by the way, my apologies. I would like to welcome your team from your various agencies, including the Heart Trust NTA, including Central Ministry, as well as the team from the Ministry of Health accompanying Dr. Tufton. Welcome members of the media. Welcome also members on social media and online. Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. All right, I have a little presentation, just 2 slides that I'm going to be going through, and hopefully they are up on the screen so that I can go. Okay, all right. Now, as you know, I'm responsible for digital transformation and skills transformation, and this morning I just wanted to talk a little bit about digital transformation. And I think it's very important that we set the context right, because in many instances, a word like digital transformation can seem very strange and very big, and am I ready for it? And there's a lot of that out there. And what I want to do is really to demystify what digital transformation is. And it is actually very, very simple. And if I talk about the goals of transformation, there are really 4 goals. And I always have to start by saying that technology, which is what this is all about, is nothing new for us in Jamaica. We use technology every day. We are always on WhatsApp. We're always using the cell phones. There's technology day in, day out in our lives. And so it's nothing to fear. And when we talk about digital transformation, we're just talking about using more technology. And so what are the goals of using this technology? And I think it's really very simple. And the first one is respect. Respect is critical. And in terms of us as a government and our interface with the citizens, it has to be from a place of respect. So when we talk about digital transformation, we're talking about putting in place systems that are going to be able to treat our citizens with respect. Because we respect you, we don't have you standing in long lines. Because we respect you, we don't have you going from office to office and trying to get the service that you deserve. Because we respect you, we don't have you having to give the same information time and time again. So the whole goal of transformation is really critically about respect. That's really at the heart of it. And then also, there is efficiency. How do we make things more efficient in our country? And you know, when you're interacting with government, it's not the most efficient. And a lot of our processes can be done better if we use technology, and we're seeing it in many of our entities where we're seeing much more efficiency gains because of technology. In addition to that, there is the goal of inclusion. Inclusion is really, 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 really critical, because a transformation is not a transformation if everybody is not a part of it. And so as we do this digital transformation, it's about how we can get every single Jamaican to feel that they're a part of a movement forward. And so everything we do is being done with inclusion in mind. And you're going to see a little bit more about that. You're going to hear about that when I talk about some of the things that are coming up later this year. And the last goal is really around trust. Technology, there are good sides and there are bad sides to everything in life, as there is in terms of technology. And it's important that a goal of this transformation is to engender trust in our people. And how we do this is by protecting data and really putting in really, really strong systems to protect people's data. And so this area of trust is really, really central to everything that we're going to do. And so this really is the goal of transformation. So it's not about just giving people technology. It's about technology for a purpose. And those goals are respect, efficiency, inclusion, and trust. So that's kind of like the root of digital transformation. Now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the kind of ecosystem and the framework around which we're going to do this digital transformation. And I've tried to do it as simply as I can, because I think it's important that we understand all of the layers to this transformation. And if we start at the base, everything starts with the foundation, right? Anything you're doing, you have to have the foundation right. And at the base is the infrastructure in Jamaica. And that infrastructure includes broadband. Broadband is very important, and broadband access is very important. And you would have seen in the Senate a couple weeks ago where we had approved the broadband project as a national development project. And that was because of how central this is. What's the point of having all this new technology and developing all these new systems if people cannot access it? And the goal of the broadband project is to bring reasonable internet services to every corner of Jamaica, because we truly believe every individual matters, irrespective of where you come from. Everybody matters, and so everybody has to have a chance to be a part of this way forward. Cybersecurity is another key element. We spoke about trust before as one of the centerpieces of this initiative and this move forward. And cybersecurity is going to be very central to that, and beefing up our cyber infrastructure as we deliver more services online. The legislative framework is also important because we have some very archaic laws, and some of these laws actually preclude us from doing some of the transformation work and making our government more efficient. And so that's going to be another peg. And of course, underpinning all of this is the digital ID, which will, when it is rolled out, be able to kind of like be the lubricant to everything and the efficiency gains that we want to have across government. So that's the infrastructure, and that's what we're working on. And then on top of that, when you now start building the house, you have digital skills. That is very key. We need to have people who understand how to do all of this. So our IT experts are going to be critical in this. And one of the key things we're going to have to do is to figure out how we are going to be training our government teams and also how we maintain them. So our key peg of this is how we have a digital services core that we can keep in government and we can attract them to the government. So that's very important, how we roll out digital skills in government, but then it's also going to be important across the country. Because as I've been saying, maths and English are critical, but now it's going to have to be maths, English plus digital skills. There's no getting around that. And then as you continue to build a house, there is that connected government. But you notice, no, connected government is built on top of the infrastructure, the digital skills. Because when we talk about connected government, we're really talking about how we integrate government systems so that they can talk to each other, so that you don't have to go from place to place and give the same information time and time again. And that is a key goal. And then, of course, there is the new economy, which we know the world has changed. The world has changed big time, and it is continuing to change. And we have to be at the forefront of allowing for this change. There are going to be many new industries that are going to pop up because of this new economy. There's going to be a lot more outsourcing type opportunities. There are going to be many more opportunities in the tech field. We already have a nice cadre of young people who are working in the tech space that are doing very innovative things. And that's going to be a key peg of the future. There are going to be many new industries that are going to be popping up. And we have to be able to have the skills, have the government infrastructure in place that can facilitate that new economy. And then there are some pillars that are important. Payment options. We have to have multiple payment options. The payment system is a key component of the entire digital society. And I must note that it says multiple payment options. It's not saying one payment option. You have many payment options. You can use cash, you can use your wallet, you can use your debit card, or you can use your credit card, anything. But we need to have many more payment options available to our people. And then the other key pillar is inclusion. We can't talk about this new economy without inclusion in there. And I keep saying it, no one can be left behind. No one should be left behind. And a key component of everything is making sure people are on board with this. And so as a part of this, for example, we're looking at our post offices and using them as digital service centers. We already know, and that's already been announced, that we are going to use them for NIDS sign-up points. But there's another layer that could be used, and that is in terms of helping people to access the government services that are more and more online, and all our post offices are in our communities. And so we're taking the technology to people where they are and working with them. And very important in all of this is that we are going to ensure that as we do everything, that the voices of the people of Jamaica are heard in it. We will be listening a lot, because it's not my project, it's not the PM's project, it's not the cabinet's project, it's not all of Jamaica project. And so we have to hear all the voices and be responsive to all the voices. And so at the end of the day, it's about respect, efficiency, inclusion, and trust. That's what digital transformation is. And when you talk about it, I hope that you will frame it in that way. Now I'm going to move on. I know I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to talk about a few initiatives that fall under my portfolio that will be coming up during up to December. And so I'm focusing on up to December. There are a lot of them, and I won't go through everything. And there are other members of the team here from HEART and RGD. So if there are questions, and even the NIDS team, they're here too. If you have questions in any area, we can also answer them. So I won't go through everything everybody's doing, but I'll go through a few important ones. A key peg of this entire digital transformation is having, as we said, the digital skills and the digital teams here. And the ICT Authority was one that has been talked about for many years. And we have the ICT Authority Act, and we have to put that in place. We need to establish the ICT Authority. And that is a commitment. We're going to be doing it. We will start with the hiring of the government CIO. Within the next 2 months, we will have that position advertised because it is critical. eGov has been doing a fantastic job with limited resources in terms of holding this down, and it is envisioned that members of the eGov team will move into this new entity, but it will be a completely new entity that will be built out with the kind of skill sets that we need, and we're very much advanced in terms of or looking at the structure. We've been working with the Minister of Finance on that structure, and so that is to come during the course of this year. There's also the establishment of NIRA, which is the National Identification Registration Authority, which is critical for the rollout of NIDS. And we're pretty advanced in terms of the structure of that authority, and during the rest of this year, we will also be putting that in place. And as we put that in place, then that sets the stage for the rollout of NIDS, which I know you are all very much anticipating. We're also looking at how we can get more public-private kind of collaboration in this, and social partnership is really critical to all of this. And so as a part of that, we will have a digital transformation advisory council with people from the private sector particularly who have an interest in helping Jamaica. And very importantly, it will also have input from the diaspora, because there's a wealth of experience in the diaspora, and we have to tap into it. And this advisory council will be led by an esteemed member of the diaspora, Jackie Wright, who is a former VP of Microsoft, and now she is the the CIO for McKinsey Group, very, very esteemed person who just wants to give back to Jamaica. And we are providing the framework for her to do that and for her to give us advice and give me a lot of advice. I've also spoken about the AI task force. That is critical because that's an area that we hear a lot of talk about and whether or not it's going to be disruptive. Any kind of new technology like generative AI is going to be disruptive. And the question is, are we ready for it? And I think the teams here are ready, but we have to start with evidence. We can't just be, afraid because we hear something that's new and disruptive. We have to look at it. We have to examine it. Are there opportunities? And there are usually opportunities. Are there opportunities? And are there some disadvantages to this? And then we have to work at mitigating the negatives. That's how we do it. That's how, many countries do it. There have been many AI task forces around the world. And what they've been doing is looking at it in their context. Does this work for us? How does it work? And many of them have actually seen that it's actually good for their economy. And so what we have to do is to look at where displacement may come and put in place strategies to mitigate against that. And that's what this AI task force is about. It's not based in fear, it's based in understanding reality and figuring out where Jamaica should position itself. In terms of some other interesting things coming up, and as I said, there are a lot, and I'm only going to focus on a few. RGD is here, and they're one of the vanguards of digital transformation, and they've been leading the way in this way. And they see a lot of Jamaican citizens. They see around 30,000 people each month. There's a lot of people that go through RGD and access their services, and they're good, but they want to get to great. And that's what I like, an entity that's constantly building. One of the things they'll be doing is issuing certificates in Braille, birth certificates in Braille. Now we talk about inclusion. Inclusion is not just a buzzword, it is real. When RGD does something like this, it shows that irrespective of who you are, we're going to respect you. And so we're going to be delivering certificates, birth certificates in Braille, and this will be done by December is the target. They're also putting in place self-service kiosks and portals where you don't have to stand in line. You can go to their office if you don't have access to internet, and you can just, instead of, you see the long line and you say, okay, I'll just go to that portal and do my service there. And they're rolling that out as we speak. Also, the first birth certificate, which we know is free, you can now apply for it online. And this is really, really good, because after a mother has given birth, the last thing she really wants to do is to have to go to RGD to deal with this process. And so in recognition of that, RGD has put that service online also, so that that's again talking about really respecting people. And they're also, on top of all of that, resuming the delivery service, so you don't have to go and spend a long time trying to collect. They will be doing the delivery services again. In terms of, I can't not say anything about HEART, because HEART is an important partner, but HEART is doing so much. I would need a whole hour to talk about HEART and all of its activities, just to remind everybody, though, that as per the Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness's presentation earlier this year in Parliament, where he made HEART programs free up to an associate's degree, it is important that we spread that word. It is free. Skills are critical for the future. And in doing something like that, again, we're saying no one can be left behind or should be left behind. Because irrespective of whether you have money or not, you can go to HEART. And HEART's programs aren't the programs of old. They are innovating. They're innovating in terms of the programs. There's a lot more technology built into the programs. The programs are very much looking to the future. What are the future skills that are needed? For example, in agriculture, it's really agri-tech that they're teaching, because agriculture is no longer agriculture of the past. It has a technology bent to it, and even in construction or fashion, any of those things, very much technology involved. But one program that's being worked through and that will be finalized soon, and that was also announced by the Prime Minister, is the LIFT program, which is Learning and Investment for Transformation program, which will be targeting students from 5th and 6th form who have graduated from 5th and 6th form across the country, so that they can get employment. And not only employment, they're going to be doing training before that in terms of the world of work. They'll be getting their NIS cards, they'll be registering for their TRN, all of that. They'll be doing driving lessons, everything. I mean, it's a fantastic program. And when we are ready to roll it out, we'll talk a lot more about it. But the HEART team has been working really, really hard to make it happen. And these students will be paid. They'll be placed in public sector companies, entities, and they'll also be in the private sector. The private sector has said they want to partner. We want to work with the government on this, and we are going to partner with them. And that is very eminent. And that's going to be 500 young people who will be put in this program over 5 years. So as I said, you know, there's a lot going on. I can't go into everything because Minister Tufton has to also speak. But there's a lot going on, and I am very hopeful for our country. I'm very hopeful in the areas of digital transformation and in skills transformation. I think we have the team, we have the right teams in place, and we're going to work as hard as we can to make things happen and to take our country forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks to Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon. Very important presentation by you. I suspect members of the public really appreciate the information that you've given. We will be allowing questions a little bit later, but first we'll have Dr. Tufton, who will be also making a presentation.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Okay. I have a lot of stuff I've scribbled down here, so forgive me. This is my first time doing this very important assignment. And so I'm still trying to acquire all the knowledge from my colleague minister to get it right. And I want to recognize Minister Dana Dixon Morrison. This is your first time, I believe, also, right? And welcome her to the team. And as you can see, she's adding a lot of value to the government and what we're trying to do. So there are a couple of things I want to mention quickly. And again, I'm kind of moving from one scrap of paper to the next because healthcare is a very busy portfolio. Up to this morning, I was tabulating a new crisis. There's one almost every day. But generally speaking, I'm hopeful because the government is doing a lot to try and advance the cause of health and wellness for the population. And, you know, I talk a lot, so I'm sure you would have heard a lot of what I am saying already, except for a new update on COVID, which I'll give momentarily. The infrastructure development, which we have spoken about, one of the largest since independence. This is about building out buildings now, hospitals, renovation, new buildings. We are making good progress as it relates to Spanish Town. This week we had a delegation from the IDB. We had a number of conversations. They toured the facility yesterday, looking at the new temporary structures that have been constructed to relocate some of the existing operation at Spanish Town, including the pharmacy. If you go there, you see a new building, which is making way for clearing up the site where the greenfield building will be built, 6 stories. There is a meeting of the board of the IDB this week, Thursday, I think it's tomorrow, where we are hopeful that a final sign-off on the expenditure, starting with Spanish Town, which is between the building and the infrastructure, you're looking at about 50-60 million US dollars. The procurement process is well advanced. We're really waiting on the no objection from the institution, the multilateral partner. By the way, it's being funded by the IDB. It is the European Union and the government of Jamaica. So it's a multi-source funding. And once we get that no objection, which I am hopeful we will, it's the cabinet, and then we anticipate an official announcement, assuming all of these things go smoothly, for breaking of ground, I'm hoping over the next few months. And I'm very hopeful. Designs are in place, the procurement around contractors are in place, and of course the grounds are being prepared. And my understanding from the visit is that it has gone well. I've had discussions with them. That is going to be the largest infrastructure of its kind in the parish of St. Catherine, and certainly the largest, meaning in terms of value, in terms of healthcare infrastructure. So it's a game changer for the parish and for the people of St. Catherine. The Cornwall Regional, which is another big one, a big elephant in the room, which for some may have been we'll describe it as my Achilles heel, because we have been at it for so long. I am very hopeful that we are now at the final phase, which is really putting in the internals of the building, the ward space, the waiting areas, the lab space, all of that stuff. And that is well advanced. Again, waiting on a final approval in the procurement process, which has been a very long process, and cabinet sign-off. Assuming all things goes well, we could see the start of that program by September. That's what I'm hoping for. And then it's full throttle through to completion. Beside that infrastructure is the Western Children and Adolescent Hospital, which is on its 5th floor. So that is being built out, and that is going up to 8 floors. And if you visit the site, you'll see the ongoing efforts that are there. On infrastructure also, we anticipate in another month or so going to market for the construction of 3 major facilities in St. Catherine to support the new Spanish Town Hospital, a new comprehensive health facility in Old Harbor. As you know, a lot of population out there with all the construction taking place, housing construction, a new facility in Portmore, and a significant overhauling of the St. Jago Health Center. All combined, you're looking at probably $1.5 billion, maybe $2 billion of infrastructure and equipment. And that will now create for St. Catherine a significant overhaul of health infrastructure for a parish that is large and growing and really deserves that kind of upliftment. And so we're happy on that. The source of that funding is also under the IDB, GOJ, EU funding. There are other hard infrastructure build-outs that are taking place. Last week I was in St. Ann, where we broke ground at the St. Ann Health Department for a new administrative structure, about 350 million Jamaican dollars. So ground is broken, contractor is on site, work has commenced. And that's to support the administrative side of the team in the parish, which is important. And that program is long overdue and is now taking place. Some delays in the procurement process, but we're happy to say that it is now happening. So I should mention also that the University Hospital of the West Indies is another large hard infrastructure project that is in the making. We are trying to complete the procurement process. The money has been allocated in the budget, over 500 million, for the ring road to be recalibrated, redesigned, expanded, for a site to be cleared, which has some older buildings. And then for the next financial year, we anticipate going to market, assuming all other things equal, for the new 6-story structure, which has been designed to begin that process. I mean, it's going to be built out over a few years, so it's not going to happen overnight. But the first signs of change at the University Hospital of the West Indies will be the reconfiguration of the ring road, which is now actively in the procurement process with money in the budget for that. There are other infrastructure projects that are taking place in keeping with the primary healthcare reform and other things that we're doing. We can comment on them as we go along. But suffice to say, in summary, that the government of Jamaica has embarked with active work on the ground, with some still in the planning stages, on the most comprehensive health infrastructure overhaul since independence. And I can back that up with as much evidence as you need, both tangible visuals as well as plans of one form or another. And that's a good thing, and that's something that we should celebrate. The proof of the pudding now is in the implementation. And so my challenge is one more in keeping with project management oversight, to make sure that contractors do what they ought to do, to make sure that things come in time and on budget. And it's not always that easy, to be totally frank with you, but we're working on that because the commitment is already there and established. The other area of consistent concern, and understandably so, is the area of diagnostics. And I agree, we get complaints every day from Jamaicans who are concerned about not being able to get the X-ray, the CT scan, et cetera, in the hospital system. We inherited that, even though we're a 7-year-plus government, and we attempted to address it through procuring new equipment, and that continues up to Monday. Infrastructure Committee and Cabinet approved a $2 million US CT scan for the Kingston Public Hospital. So that in itself is an announcement. It's a good thing because there were complaints about the constant downtime of the CT scan there. We have repaired the old one, but we're now purchasing a new one. And that we expect to be delivered by September, I am told. So that's good for KPH. We've done similar types of infrastructure repair around diagnostic across the board. But one of the big challenges that we face is the service arrangements for these pieces of complicated equipment. More often than not, even with extended service warranties, which we are now standardizing in the system, when you have a downtime for a machine, it requires someone flying in from overseas, sometimes as far as Europe. And so what could have been repaired in a day if someone was on site takes a week because somebody have to fly in to fix it. Then they know they need a part, they have to, the logistic arrangement around that because of capacity issues is just poor. So over that time, what we have attempted to do, which I'm happy to announce we're making progress with, is to engage in what is a first for us, which is a leasing arrangement of hard diagnostic complicated infrastructure. So essentially sourcing an entity that can provide the equipment in our hospitals, provide servicing, allow for a depreciated value over time so those equipments can be changed rather than us trying to bring life beyond its useful life out of it and trying to do makeshift arrangements around repairs. So I'm happy to announce that we, having taken that policy decision, we've asked the IDB for technical support because we have never done it before. It's potentially a game-changing initiative. We have gone to market for expressions of interest, not a tendering process as yet, and have received a number of entities who have said they are interested, some local, some overseas, and we like that, to provide a leasing contract for the key equipment to be placed, which they will then service, depreciate, and replace. So it's like a leasing a car. You know, you don't own it, you pay a fee for its usage, they maintain it, and after a while you change it and get a new one. The next step, having gotten expressions of interest, is the development of a tender document, which IDB is helping us with because they have a lot of experience in that. And the idea is to go to market, and hopefully, I am hoping that by the next financial year, we will have some very positive developments around placing under a lease arrangement the core infrastructure of equipment in our main hospitals. And we would have seen these downtimes a thing of the past. In the meantime, we still have the outsourcing arrangement. But I know we have treated, I think it's 120,000 up to the time when I read my sectoral in May, persons would have received the outsourcing benefit, meaning as an X-ray machine or CT scan doesn't work in the hospital, we pay for it for them to do it privately. The problem with it, clearly, is that when you have emergencies, you can't go somewhere to get that treatment. You want the X-ray right there because you have a gunshot wound or whatever. So there is that concern, and it's a justifiable concern that people like KPH and others raise when they have the downtime of some of these things. So this is why we have to still go ahead and purchase where we don't have, as we're doing with KPH. But ultimately, the leasing arrangement will replace or substantially address some of those concerns. Okay, piece of paper. So there are some things that are other forms of infrastructure that have taken place over the last few days that I have been advised of. So let me give you a few. So Southeast Regional Health Authority have allocated some $48 million for ventilators for the Victoria Jubilee Hospital, and also a standard procedure of extended service warranty to keep them working for 3 years, and that should be available in 2 to 3 weeks. The Spanish Town Hospital recently got a number of critical infrastructure beds. Hospital beds are not regular beds. They have to recline, they have to turn in different direction, whatever. 68,000 US. Those are delivered this week. The Bustamante Hospital for Children, similarly so, pediatric beds, 30 cribs, 35 pediatric beds, inclusive of 5-year preventative maintenance. And that plus some pediatric beds for Spanish Town, 179,000 US dollars. The COVID, I'm going to close now and I'll answer any questions. So COVID continues to show signs of increase. I spoke to it last week in the Parliament, where I indicated that on average we were carrying about 100 cases a month since January. I'm told that, this is up to last night, that we're seeing now 130. Let me just read it. Follow up on the COVID-19 hospitality. The trend is a general increase. Overall daily hospitalization from hospital census running over 100 last week. This week it's 130, both confirmed and suspected. So we treat them once they're suspected as if they're confirmed until otherwise. Positive cases just under half of that. Isolation ward occupancy was averaging about 20% of available space last week. It's about 30% this week. Persons classified as moderately ill moved from 13 to 22 in the space of a week. We have 2 severely ill, no critically ill. In addition to lab results, confirmed cases increasing, there's also increase in hospitalization. General bed occupancy, that is for all patients, remain high. Western Regional Health Authority and SERA, over 90%, 60 to 70% in NERA and SERA. I'm sure you know what those are, right? Western Regional Health, Southern Regional Health, Southeast Regional Health, right? And KPH, Spanish Town, and Linstead are over 90%. We're going to send out an unofficial release today on that. This was up to last night. But what generally it means is that we are seeing an uptick in COVID cases. I did say that in the Parliament this week. We're monitoring it closely. The good part of that, of course, is that we're not seeing any significant increases in deaths, which is the extreme case. Every death is regrettable, of course. But the fact that we're seeing increases in positivity it means that it will have an impact for hospitalization and bed occupancy. And the fact that people are in hospital means the probability of people dying will increase. So we can't take it lightly. So our message continues to be, if you are vulnerable, if you are in doubt, if you're concerned, see your doctor, and there are infection prevention control mechanisms that are standard operating procedure. The mask wearing, the sanitizing, the avoiding of crowds, particularly if you fall in the vulnerable category. The over 65s, the people with underlying conditions, cancers, that sort of thing, then you clearly become more vulnerable than most. And of course, frontline workers. So we will continue to watch the COVID scenario. The general thrust of policy in Jamaica, as is the case in the world, is that we're learning to live with COVID. And the variant strains that are there now are not considered the most lethal. In fact, they are considered relatively mild. But if you're 75 with a heart condition, or 50 as the case may be, or a recovering cancer patient or a renal patient, then a COVID virus could amplify that and create your demise, which is why we have to recognize that it's not something to take lightly. And it will affect hospital waits in the case of the major hospitals that have other issues that are affecting demand on the system. The heat wave, Chairman, is the last point I'll make before I sit. That continues, and we have spoken about it, that it is something to be taken seriously also, particularly if you're vulnerable. It continues. The days are very hot. So if you have to work on the outdoors, please take precautions to protect yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tufton. Really important updates, particularly that $2 million CT scan machine for the Kingston Public Hospital. I understand that your team was able to procure it in record time, as Cabinet only approved, I think, the procurement in April, and now we're in July. It was an emergency procurement. I'm sure the patients and health professionals at KPH would be very appreciative of that development. We will start off with Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon, ladies before gentlemen as usual, and then we will have Dr. Tufton answer questions. Yes. All right, so members of the media, as usual, you can indicate that you wish to ask a question by raising your hand. The person will attend upon you with a microphone, and you identify yourself and your media host, and we will field your questions. Do we have a question for Dr. Morris-Dixon?
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Chris Patterson from the Jamaica Information Service. Could you provide us with more information on the AI task force? How soon will it be established and the membership? Thank you.
Sure. All right, the AI task force is really, really critical, especially given where we are, and especially in terms of the possible displacement that can take place in some of our sectors. And one key sector is the BPO sector, which we do have some concern with in relation to those who may be at the bottom of that sector in terms of especially customer service agents, because we know with AI, there's that technology, it's already been in place for many years and it is expanding significantly. And so we do have some concerns about displacement there, and it's important that we do reskilling. And so a key role of the AI task force is many different things that it has to do. It has to look at AI and look at the opportunities and also the risks. And the risks may fall into impact on industries. Risks could be impact in terms of even disinformation and how it's used in terms of social media. So there are many aspects that we want to look at. So we're both looking at the opportunities that exist? Are there industries that could be that we could look at in relation to, exploiting AI, or are there sectors that will be displaced and can we fix them? And then also looking at any kind of legislative or policy changes that would be necessary. Now, I don't want to talk about membership until it's finally through cabinet, but we do have very senior people in the IT industry in Jamaica and also in the diaspora that have expressed an interest in being a part of the task force, and we have been vetting those individuals. And once we get it through cabinet and all the names are approved, we will come with the entire range of the membership of that task force. And that should be done within the next 2 weeks.
Thank you, Dr. Morris Dixon. Do we have another question for Dr. Morris Dixon?
Everything was so clear.
Yes, you were. You're excellent.
Thank you.
Regarding NIDS, we know that the post offices are being retrofitted. Just an update on that and update on NIDS in general. You spoke about NERA, but what else is happening with NIDS?
All right. We have the NIDS team here. They can come and tell you, and I know that they had issued tenders for some of the retrofitting, and we're retrofitting even more of them, and there's a lot of work that has been done over the last few months. I'm going to have our NIDS team, and I have to apologize for Dr. Vernon, who is on vacation, but he is ably supported by a very good team.
Good morning. Just want to say that we are embarking on, I'm Sean Brooks, and I'm the Renovation of Spaces Manager for NIDS. Just want to say that we have embarked on our renovation of spaces. We have recently launched 10 tenders for 10 sites. Those have been launched in June 5, and we are expecting to receive those tenders by the 26th of July. Those are the first 10. After we have finished with those 10, then we have another 10 that we're going to start the process with from the end of July, right? So those are very much advanced. We have finished all our designs, we have finished our BQs, and we're pretty much moving forward with the process.
And I should just add, in relation to NIDS also, there's been some work in relation to the card, and I spoke about inclusion before. And on the card, there had been some calls for persons living with disabilities to have their own ID, that they could show that they do have a disability. One of the things that was recently approved by Cabinet was for us to have that universal symbol of disability placed on the NIDS card, and that saves our country quite a bit of money, because it means that we don't have to print new cards for persons living with disabilities. That will just be now shown on the NIDS card. The NIDS card will also be able to show who is a JP. So JPs will also have a designation on the card. So we've been doing quite a bit of work in terms of that, in terms of the card and building out the infrastructure in place. But of course, we know we had the pilot where we asked some people to sign up, and we obviously overachieved in relation to that, and that says that there is demand for this new digital ID. We won't be able to print those official cards, obviously, until we have NERA in place, because as per the legislation, that's the entity that has to do that. And so until that happens, we won't be able to issue those cards. But that was very, very smooth. That process went very smooth, and it does signal that we're on the right track in terms of the rollout.
Just to, we're living in a very interesting world with social media, and we got our WhatsApp message, which has at the top of it forwarded many times this morning, which essentially is an old WhatsApp that speaks about NIDS despite many opposition to the NIDS bill on Friday, I don't need to go into the details of it. I just want to ensure that we have the facts out, Dr. Morris Dixon. The NIDS bill was passed. It is in line with our Constitution. It is a voluntary law. The government is not going to force anyone to accept the NIDS. While we appreciate the goodness of it and how it will improve our society, we're asking persons who may have received this WhatsApp to just do a simple Google search to get the facts as to what is happening out there, and do not allow persons of ill intent to mislead you as it relates to this important development. Thank you, Dr. Dana Morris.
One more question, Minister.
Oh, you have a... I thought you didn't have any question.
Hal Shane Burke, Radio Jamaica News. Minister, you spoke about the pilot project. Can you give us some update as to what is happening at the moment and where we are with that?
Okay, in terms of the pilot project, as I said, it went very, very smoothly. We hit the target immediately in terms of the pilot, and I have to thank my predecessor, Minister Floyd Green, for the work that he did in terms of that pilot and getting things to this point. And all I'm doing is just taking it forward. So in terms of the pilot, individuals went in, the biometrics were done, and we just have not been able to print the official card because the law says that it is NERA that does that, and NERA has not been established. And so what we're doing now is getting all of our approvals for NERA, because that structure is important. And so remember, all structures are approved through the Ministry of Finance. And so we're waiting for the final structure. Once that structure is finalized, we will put people in place. There's a beautiful project management team and an implementation unit where most of those individuals will become part of the new NERA. And so as soon as that's done, and that's in its final phases, I mean, the Ministry of Finance is pretty advanced in that. Once we've set it up, and we will be working on the board too, we have names for the board. Once we've established that board and we are ready to go, then we can print those IDs, and they will be the first ones to get their digital ID. But again, I have to echo what my colleague minister has just said. NIDS is not something that is compulsory. It is voluntary. And I think it is definitely in keeping with our Constitution. And we talked about inclusion and we talked about options. People have options. And we are not about saying this is compulsory. It is if you wish to be a part of NIDS. Now, we think it is a good thing, and having a digital ID is a good thing, but we won't force anyone. And we understand there may be concerns, and that's why we're here. And we're going to be talking and listening quite a bit, because this is not about us, it's about all of Jamaica. And so we will work with everyone. Anyone who doesn't want to sign up for NIDS, that's fine. But those who want to, there is a wonderful process available for you to do it. So let's keep to the facts. NIDS is not compulsory.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Morris Dixon. I'll now ask Dr. Tufton to join us again to assist us with answering some questions. And members of the media also could ask me questions as well. I forgot to say that at the beginning.
You?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I work at MOH now.
Can you please direct all your health questions to this gentleman? I have no mic. Mike? Yeah, okay, all right.
Morning, Dr. Tufton. Hal Shane Burke, Radio Jamaica News. In terms, I know that there's an emphasis being placed by the Ministry of Health to primary health care. Mm-hmm. But what is being done to ensure that the infrastructure is in place, that the necessaries are there for the triage to take place so that persons, when they get there, they are treated?
Okay. Are you hearing me? Okay, so you may recall that the ministry tabled a document in the Parliament around our strategic plan and the restructuring and overhauling of primary health care and the justification for it. So a lot of that detail is contained within that plan. It's on the website, so you can reference to, supplement or complement what I'm saying. But essentially, what the reform at primary healthcare will mean, it will mean more infrastructure build-out, which includes the 3 I just announced, the large ones in St. Catherine. There are several others. In fact, over the last 4 years, we have renovated or improved over 100 health centers. And again, that list is in my sectoral presentation. The other components would be personnel. So the document does say that there's an intention to hire more doctors and nurses. The Ministry of Finance and ourselves, through the restructuring exercise, has allowed for another 1,500 healthcare workers to be added to the cadre, which includes a substantial amount at the primary level. It will take some time because, frankly speaking, we don't have some of those we need. They have to be trained. But it will begin now, and as it has started, because COVID has seen some added already. So what improved infrastructure and more people means is greater throughput. So we hope that the transaction time and cost around waits will improve. And then there's the equipment to support some of that. So we do believe that that will enhance the quality of care. Beyond that, though, there are other programs that we are trying to encourage care, and in particular prevention rather than cure at the primary level around. The latest Know Your Numbers campaign that was launched, we intend to do about 500,000 health screening, which includes mobile clinics. So essentially, instead of people coming to a fixed center, we go into underserved areas. Those are going to be rolled out in early September. They are now repurposing, that's the right word, the COVID buses, or some of them, not all, and preparing them to be accompanied by personnel into communities to begin to give support at that level. Those are just some of the things I think that will enhance the care at that community-based primary healthcare level. Partnerships included also. Okay, any other? You had your, I don't know who is first. Milton?
Hang on. Can we fix the mic, please?
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yes. Minister, a couple questions for you. First, for Cornwall Regional, you mentioned that you're procuring, I think, equipment now. Can I infer from your answer that, or your comments earlier, that the build out of equipment and furnishing of the hospital will be complete by the first half of next year and it will be reopened? If not, can you give me that timeline?
Right. Yeah.
And 2, has there been any deaths from the heat crisis so far in Jamaica? And 3rd, why is...
to ask the first 2, they're very detailed ones. We'll allow you the third one. We'll allow you the third one.
All right, so I yield to the chairman. So on the Cornwall regional issue, it's a lot more complicated than it appears. And I appreciate the cynicism and the skepticism, if you will, around this particular project, because it has taken a while for a number of reasons, which we won't get into now. Where we are now, though, is that we are at a point where the core building is now solid, has been made solid. And the final phase of the contract is a design and build out, if you will, which means the internals. So the windows, the doors, the wards, and the equipment to be placed in. It's going to take longer than the middle of next year. But what we envision is that once we start, we will phase the reopening. So you could get some of the floors the time that you have just outlined, but you will not get all at that point. It's going to take a little longer. So I envision that by the middle of next year, hopefully before, we will start to unveil a few of the floors. It's a 12-floor building, 10-floor building, and we will work it until we are completed. And the timelines are kind of similar with Western Children. And it's important because they're also connected in that dietary, for example, the catering, will be in one location for both institutions. They're right beside each other. So it's a phased reopening that will take a little longer for a full reopening than what you have outlined. On the issue of the heat wave, I have no record of any deaths. I can check, but something like that would normally be reported to me, and I have no records of it. And then the third?
Well, the ministry has sent out notifications.
Yes, we sent out a list. I made a statement in the parliament about it. I took note that there was an editorial on it in one of the daily print media. So yes, we have made an issue of it and will continue to for public education.
Right. Yeah, and you made reference earlier to the population growth in the Old Harbour corridor in southern St. Catherine and the infrastructure work to improve, basically build a new hospital in Spanish Town and the Old Harbour Clinic. But why is the government so determined not to build a hospital in Portmore with over 300,000 people? I suspect the census, which is ongoing, may yield a little higher figure. And the numbers do speak to the need for a major medical facility in that city. You've got all of northern, from Yorton, Linstead, Lloydersville, coming down to Spanish Town, the Old Harbour corridor, Spanish Town itself, on Spanish Town. And we saw that in COVID and in the best of time when there are emergencies, you know, major highways pass near Spanish Town, so that hospital gets all of that traffic. Why is the government seemingly not interested in building a hospital for the city of Portmore?
Right. All right, so you've made some assumptions which I want to correct. Firstly, it's not an issue of lack of interest at all. The part of the dilemma that we face is that we have inherited a decrepit, rundown, for want of a better word or terminology, health infrastructure. I mean, we haven't built a hospital in Jamaica for 25 years, about 27 actually. I think Maypen Hospital was the last major. And the maintenance schedule has been way below par. So we have set out in the initial stages to do a 10-year strategic plan to look at the existing infrastructure, and that was amplified with the collapse of Cornwall. Remember, Cornwall was a problem 10 years before we took over, and it just literally went to a grinding halt, which I fear will happen to KPH, and I fear would happen to Spanish Town, and maybe even University Hospital, if we did not do something about those institutions. So a lot of the focus around the overhauling of public health was to restore in a substantial way, not a band-aid way, as was the case in the past, though the existing institutions. And by adding capacity and improving capacity of those institutions, we would address the concerns and the demands on those institutions. So you say Portmore, and I agree with you, the people of Portmore deserve more health infrastructure. We're doing a 5 or 600 million comprehensive health centers, I've announced already. But we're doing a major overhaul of KPH, which is a major feeder hospital for that side. Spanish Town, which is a major feeder for that population. And Maypen. Maypen is also a part of the IDB. So that belt that people would traverse would allow 3 significant options, supported by the 3 significant developments of primary healthcare infrastructure, which I spoke about, which is Old Harbour, St. Jago, and Portmore. So while I understand the kind of logic around placing an infrastructure, a hospital in Portmore, and I do believe that it's something we need to continue to pursue. And we have agreed that we need a new hospital along that stretch, whether it's on the border of Portmore, St. Catherine, or in Portmore, because the population of Portmore has expanded over into Old Harbour. The housing developments there have just exploded. So you can't just speak about Portmore, you have to speak a lot about that belt. The first order of business is to try to ensure that KPH, Spanish Town, Maypen benefit. Because not to be long with it, if you go to Maypen, they'll tell you that people travel from St. Catherine on the border to Maypen Hospital. At KPH, people move from St. Catherine to KPH. Huh? And that's why we're spending nearly $60 billion to build a new 6-story building, new operating theaters, new diagnostics, new waiting area, new A&E. I mean, it's actually quite an attractive looking piece of infrastructure. And when it is realized, it is going to add significant capacity to serving the people of that kind of continuous belt, which includes Portmore. But Portmore is not forgotten. We are discussing a new hospital along that stretch, but we wanted to restore what we had first.
I think you should also mention that private sector is also working in Portmore.
Yes, we have gotten some inquiries, and we are willing to entertain those inquiries also around the possibility of private.
Do we have another?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sashana Small. I'm with the Jamaica Glean. I have a question for Minister Tufton as well as Minister Morgan. Minister Tufton, you mentioned that CT machine has been procured for KPH. Can you give us an update as to MRI machine? Is the facilities also lacking that?
Right. So there is a firm that has been engaged to come in and to do an audit or assessment of the critical pieces of infrastructure, CT, MRI, and X-ray capacity at KPH. I need to get an update as to where it is, because it's not that equipment isn't there. The issue is the downtime because of age, which is why I suspect they have taken a decision around a new one when they have concluded that the old one would have served its useful life. Others could be repaired, but I would need to get an update as to where exactly they are. But I know it's being looked at.
Okay, thank you, Minister. Minister Morgan, Prime Minister Holness has been a strong promoter of the plight of the Haitian in the international community. Is the government concerned about how its decision to fine and deport the Haitians who arrived in Portland last Wednesday will affect its international advocacy on their behalf?
No, I don't think so. I don't know if you were present. I think you were present last week, where Minister Johnson Smith outlined that Jamaica was a signatory to all the relevant protocols as it relates to persons who find themselves in these positions, and we are ensuring that we follow these protocols. She also revealed last week that none of the persons who came to Jamaica had applied for asylum. And without that application, I suspect that the government has no choice but to enter onto the path that we have gone on. The other thing that we must take into consideration is not to assume that the intended destination of these individuals was Jamaica. There have been circumstances in the past where, due to the trade winds, they are seeking to go to the north, but they end up in the south. So I'm not speculating, don't want to speculate, but because they have not applied for asylum, then a particular process has to take place under Jamaican law. The second thing is we remain committed to the position that we have articulated through the Prime Minister, as he has been pushing himself with relation to Haiti. The Prime Minister is currently in Brussels, where he has had several meetings with our European partners. And one of the big issues that he has been pushing is asking for more assistance and stronger assistance for the Haitian people within the global community. The CARICOM group was also in Haiti recently to continue discussions with the various stakeholders as it relates to seeking a permanent solution for the challenges that they face in Haiti. So no, I don't believe that, based on all the information that we've had over the past week, that the statement in the question is correct. Thank you.
Just a quick follow-up, Minister. You mentioned the asylum process. Do we know if that was presented to them as an option?
They would have been presented with it. They would have been, upon arrival, they would have been briefed. As part of the process, they go through health checks to figure out whether they have any ailments. And they would have been, based on the treaties that we sign, been advised of the rights that they have as persons who have entered the country in the circumstances that they did. Mr. Walker.
Yeah. Mr. Morgan, regarding the issue, the diplomatic issue, which broke earlier this week with the United States, one, has there been any further development? And did the U.S. send another diplomat in that person's place, or is that person still on the cards for them to send?
Well, the most I can say about that is that, well, the first thing is the Minister of Foreign Affairs is currently on duty with the Prime Minister in Brussels, so she's not really available to respond as quickly as we wish. But I know you would have been privy this morning to a press release from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and also a statement from the U.S. Embassy on the matter. And I think for the benefit of those who may not have seen it, I would like to read what it says. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, has dismissed recent media reports of a diplomatic row, in quotations, between Jamaica and the United States. In accordance with the diplomatic practice and within the ambit of its constitution, Jamaica grants privileges and immunities to incoming diplomats, their staff, and families to either reside or visit the country. All requests made to the Foreign Ministry are considered within that context. Members of staff from both countries continue to reside and work in each other's territory and are expected to observe the laws of host country. Minister Johnson-Smith emphasized that Jamaica has always complied with procedures and set term limits for the length of stay of diplomats within the United States. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade has complied with these procedures and has in fact conducted its customary rotation exercise. Heads of Jamaican missions in the United States, whose tenure will come naturally to an end later this year, are already preparing for their transition. She emphasized that the government of Jamaica recognizes the importance of maintaining the traditions and practices of diplomacy, which have long ensured a seamless relationship with the diplomatic community and supported vibrant and admirable relations with the United States for over 60 years. She further observed that the people-to-people relations between Jamaica and the United States have been a most successful era of cooperation, and we look forward to their continuation. There is no diplomatic spat, or as the media reported, diplomatic row between Jamaica and the United States as we continue to enjoy strong and positive diplomatic relations. And the U.S. would have echoed the same sentiments yesterday in their presentation. And I suspect that's as much information I have on the matter, Mr. Walker.
I suspect both governments are trying to downplay the dispute, and that's fine, that's their job. But if somebody takes an action and there's a retaliatory action, that's some bit of a spat.
I mean, that's your interpretation that language, we're trying to
English.
downplay. I mean, we lead facts first, and the facts are as we present them.
Sure. And I want to take you up on that, something that you read from the statement. Are you saying that Jamaica did not request an extension for 3 diplomats currently serving the United States beyond their 5-year term?
All right, so I can only give you the information that has been given to me by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We saw reports in the media in relation to what is classified as a diplomatic row. I engaged with the minister and also the ministry, and they provided me with a statement to say that there is not a row. In the general engagement between countries, there will not always be agreements on 100% of matters. I will suggest to you that there are hundreds of other matters that there is disagreement throughout within countries, within the global community. But the reason why diplomacy is important is the ability to sit down and discuss. And I'm aware that Jamaica continues to have robust discussions with the United States on a myriad of issues.
With respect, though, my question is, are you saying on the record that Jamaica did not request an extension for 3 diplomats currently serving the United States?
I'm not saying anything on that matter. That's what I'm saying. I cannot speak about something that I do not have the facts for.
Well,
and until I'm given an official, as Minister of Information, you would have to appreciate that I cannot speculate. You may have your sources, which may be right or wrong, I can only speak fact first, and the facts I have is restricted to the statements I have given so far.
Can I ask you one final question? There's a 9-story building going up across the road in front of Jamaica House. Why would the government have allowed that building to be constructed across from Jamaica House, given some obvious security issues? In other jurisdictions, a building that height would not necessarily have been allowed in front of the office of the head of government. Certainly you couldn't build anything like that near the White House. I'm just wondering why would the government, which controls the local council or municipal corporation and the central government, would have allowed that building to be constructed?
I don't know if it's fair to say we control the council, because then what you'd be saying is that we can be subjective and arbitrary in which buildings get approval or not. Whether
there's a process to approve buildings, of course.
Yes, but there is not an arbitrary process, and the local council is not the only approving entity that approves buildings. I would have to do some research on that edifice that is at the front, and I will get back to you on it. But I really don't have much information on it. But I really appreciate you bringing up the query.
You don't see it as a potential security concern?
I'm not a security consultant, Milton. I have to depend on the experts to advise me. But valid concern you've raised, and I commit to you that we will get some answers to you today. Do we have any more questions? I suspect we have exhausted all the questions. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Dr. Tufton. I would like to express appreciation to Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon. Don't leave just yet, Dr. Tufton. I need you for 2 more minutes. Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon and her team, Dr. Tanisha Ingleton, Managing Director of the Heart Trust and Art NSTA Trust, Ms. Joaquin Murray, Chief Technical Director in the OPM, and Ms. Anika Baker, CEO of eGov Jamaica, and also I see Shuttleworth, my apologies, and I see Mr. Charlton McFarlane, who is CEO of the Registrar General's Department, and I understand that Mr. Sean Brooks and Najija Baker from NIDS are also here, as well as Dr. Tufton and his team from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Ms. Reina, my apologies. Thanks to the media, thanks to our support staff, thanks to the head of news at the RJR Gleaner Group, Mr. Walker, for blessing us this morning at the post-cabinet press briefing. Also want to thank members of the public who tuned in, those on Facebook, those on TikTok, those on social media. Join us again next week. We're always on time, 8 a.m. Wednesday, for another post-cabinet press briefing. Thank you very much.